But this is a study, and so we spend a lot of our time in the organization helping women understand that to get the big job, you don't need to have all those skill sets. You need to have the capability, the will, first of all. We can help you develop those. But sometimes they self-select out. So it is building confidence. I think it's a two-way street, right? It's not just one way. It is about getting women to understand that they have to aspire to the role. They need to work to fill the skill gaps, but they're equally viable for the role to men as well.
And to that point, a real accountability on all of us in our own career development to build those relationships, to actively network, to seek out sponsors and mentors. There is no doubt about it. Men and women that succeed internally within organizations have had active mentors and people that have opened doors for them. It's critical. And so there really is an accountability. It's wonderful when organizations have formal programs, but there is a real informal network that's equally as valid to find people that are going to introduce you and sponsor you, and that really is the word, sponsor you, challenge you, teach you, educate you, and then again, as that's happened in your career development, the accountability is back for bringing other top talent, men and women, up behind you to do the same thing.
Great, thank you. Other questions? Yeah.
Thank you for the great discussion so far. To play the other side, what are your thoughts on someone who would say that women are choosing to opt out of those executive positions due to work-life balance, due to wanting to raise a family and spend time with them? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think that is the reality. Sometimes it's demanding roles. So, I mean, I'll speak for TD. We do believe that is one of the issues that we do face. So some of the feedback we'll get from women is they'll say, you know, when I look at the role models in your roles, I'm one of them. Boy, you people work really hard. I'm not sure you're having a lot of fun. So it is incumbent upon us to demonstrate, you know, what we actually enjoy about our roles and how you can balance your life and still have it all. And the best advice I ever got was, you can have it all, you just can't have it at the same time.
That's right.
But I think, so what we've been focusing a lot on is flexible work options. So both men and women, frankly, because it's not just a female-oriented issue, I don't think. And it's a challenge for the organization, but we have been really disciplined about making people understand that we are willing and wanting to listen. So if you have a need that you feel we can't accommodate, ask before you assume. We've got lots of flexible work option programs available. Part of our issue really is awareness. So we're spending a lot of our time right now just telling people that you do have the option, just ask and we shall accommodate. I think one of the issues we do face is onboarding. So women who've left the organization or the industry and they're attempting to get back in, we haven't quite figured that one out yet. So we're working hard to make it a more seamless experience for women to get back into the industry and certainly to our bank. But we're still working hard at that one because the feedback from many women will see it's still very difficult.
I think actually it's also not just a women's issue, I think it's a generational issue. So as I said, I've added myself at 42. When I look at 20s and 30s coming up, you know, I've been on panels like this before, and you have the 40s and 50s that have really worked incredibly hard hours to get to where we are. By choice, but it was what was required. We had the 20s and 30s saying, you know, well, if that organization isn't going to be flexible for me, I'm just going to go somewhere else. The reality check of what just happened with the economy and what happened to people's families, I think will balance that out a little bit. Because, you know, I think there's a lot of entitled generational kids that just think that, you know, it all is just somehow going to happen for them without hard work. I don't know any successful, I used to say this to my niece all the time, I do not know a single successful CEO in any company that hasn't worked hard for what they do. Does everybody have to aspire to be a CEO? No. But should they aspire to be productive in the communities and in their organizations? Absolutely yes, and to use all their capabilities to do something, because that's what we're all here to do. So is there a choice, and should there be a choice? And yes, should organizations be flexible with it? Yes. But I think you've got to work hard. I think you've got to work hard wherever you are, male or female.
Time for 2 more questions, and I see about 6 hands. So I'll also give out my email so that anyone can send me questions at the end I can filter back through.
Yes, it's Catherine, and another engineer, but the next generation, I guess. My question was about the generation of 20s and 30-year-olds, because I think that their viewpoints are very different. So, Jim, when you spoke about the funnel, or, you know, this is the next generation coming into it, you know, sometimes I speak to them, and it's like they're clueless. They you know, they're everything's possible. There are no issues. There's, you know, and what is your perspective on this? What are you seeing in terms of the next sort of group of women entering the workforce?
Well, I would agree with, you know, the fundamental piece for us is this is around job structure to a large degree, and the reality is the appetite for this generation for the job structure paradigm that many of us have grown up in is passé. I have no doubt we'll be able to get people with strong work ethics who will do the job as we expect, but they'll want to do it on their own terms much more than you know, the way we came through the workforce and came up the ranks. The challenging part on that is to get the incumbent managers to learn to live with providing that kind of flexibility. You know, we tend to be Pavlovian. So you've got to get this cultural change and this awareness, but the things start breaking down when you realize you can't go to a university recruiting session and attract people if you know, you have starched blue suits, striped ties, and a bunch of guys with bowler hats on. Like, you know, you've got to be empathetic in order to attract them, and I think that requires a lot of smart thinking. And to a large degree, I'll go back to the point, some structural work to say this is the value proposition for that generation. You know, I'm intimidated by 20-year-olds coming out of university. They'll know. There's incredibly capable people hitting the workforce these days, but they're not going to be happy coming up the way that one of the older people in the panel doing the hard work that I
need
did.
a 20-year-old mentor. Reverse mentor is very powerful.
Not on Facebook yet.
Oh my.
Time for one last question, yes.
Hi, my name is Sabrina. I work in sales and actually the technology field. So last night I was having a conversation, and there's quite a few women in the room that are interested in approaching boards and being on boards. What practical advice do you have for the women in the room who are interested, myself included, on how to go about doing this in a productive and smart way?
Well, this is a much longer conversation than the one sentence answer, and if anybody would like to meet with me, and I do a lot of coaching complimentary just to create a strategic path to do that. But the truth of the matter is still today, and I hope to have some mark on this, is that most board work, both not-for-profit and for-profit, are done through a network. They're not retained searches. They don't, you know, it's not to say that some don't go get put in the market. The majority of them, I would say, like 95% of them are knowing people. So it's learning to market yourself. It's strategically developing a network with organizations. It's being educated, understanding who's on the board, understanding what those organizations are doing, and being able to connect the dots of what you bring, both personally and professionally, to the table, and how that might fit in, and getting on the radar screen of their HR comp committee, which are also involved, or their CEO and other board members. It's getting the proper governance and education. So the Institute of Corporate Directors is a wonderful organization, both from a networking standpoint and from just a learning standpoint. I could go on for an hour, but this is a topic in and of itself. But do know there really is a strategy to do it and do it effectively. You have to be patient, and you have to be well networked. And I think that that's the truth. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think there is an opportunity to make your entry in the nonprofit world. That's a good experience. You'll learn a lot, and it's probably easier than breaking into a corporate environment.
Absolutely.
There's a great need there.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you all very much. I know I saw more hands in the audience. At the end of the 3 sessions, I know there's a slide going up that has my email address on it, so that we don't lose any of the questions that folks had. Feel free to email me with them, and I will also make sure to get them back to the panel and get answers out to you, because I think there's just such richness, and obviously in a short amount of time we don't have the chance to get into all of it, but I also don't want to lose the enthusiasm and the questions that you have. So make sure to note down my email at the end, and I will commit to you to get the questions answered and back to you. and would sincerely like to thank all of you, Lisa, Jim, Sandy. Much appreciated. A little 9 a.m. I believe we mentioned joy at the beginning of the day as one of the things that we're trying to.
From our sponsor, Treasury.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.